on Monday, Wyatt Langford did something that he's never done before in the Cactus League, and it shows why the Rangers have absolutely no choice but to keep him on the opening day roster. We'll talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into what Wyatt Langford done in the Cactus League that he's never done before, and about Nathan Eovaldi looking just about ready for opening day, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, Wyatt Langford has done a lot of things in the Cactus League so far. He's done a lot of good things in his professional career, as short as it has been. But the thing that he did on Monday that he's never done before in the Cactus League is DH. He hit third and DH'd, and that might be where he slots into this opening day lineup. Yeah, you heard me right. Hitting third and DHing on opening day for your Texas Rangers. Now, there's a reason that he hasn't DH'd at all this spring. It's because the main question about Langford is not whether he can hit, because everybody in the world knows that this man can hit and hit incredibly well for such a young age and for such a lack of professional at-bats. But the question was, can he play the outfield? Can he play defense? What does that glove look like? Is it good enough to hang in a major league outfield every day or just fairly often? And to me, that always felt like a kind of superfluous question about Wyatt Langford. Yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the outfield in college or in the minors, because he just switched to playing outfield full-time as a sophomore in college, so the reps aren't exactly there. But the kid is incredibly fast, he's incredibly athletic, he is an exceptionally hard worker, and it's just left field. I mean, it's not like the Rangers are asking him to, play shortstop every day, or even center field, or even go back to catching, which actually he might do better because he has more experience catching, because he was a catcher in high school and early on at Florida. But he's not a catcher anymore. He's an outfielder, and primarily, he's a hitter. One of my favorite prospects to cover coming up through the Rangers system was Willie Calhoun. Now, when the Rangers traded for him, this might put you off, but just hear me out. Hear me out, okay? Because Willie Calhoun was not a defender. He was a hitter. He was a pure hitter, and he was a darn good hitter until whatever the Rangers started teaching him just was not sinking in, and he stopped being the kind of hitter that he was coming up through the minor leagues. But the guy was a second baseman / left fielder / mainly a DH, but everyone knew that Willie Calhoun's bat was the thing that was going to carry him to and through the big leagues. And so when scouts would ask Willie Calhoun, what position do you play? He would always answer, 3-hole hitter. Now that's baller. That's a baller line, and it's one of the reasons why I loved Willie Calhoun. Now, if you ask this young man, Wyatt Langford, what position he plays, he's probably not going to say 3-hole hitter, and that's fine. But he is. He is what we hope Willie Calhoun would be, and then some. This guy has been lighting up spring training, and some of the questions for putting him at DH are, this is a guy who's not had a lot of DH experience. And it's not something you usually do to a young kid, especially one as athletic as Wyatt Langford. If he's got the potential to be a plus outfielder, which I think he does, especially in left field, then you want to get that glove into the field, keep him engaged, keep him, in the routine that he is used to playing baseball games. You go out on defense, and that you don't just sit in the dugout for half the game like DHs do. And so the worry was, can this kid stay, mentally engaged? Can this kid stay, locked into his at-bats when he's not going out there and he's out of his normal routine? Well, all he did was go 2 for 3 with a walk, an RBI double, a hard hit single, and the only out that he produced was him running out a fielder's choice instead of making it a grounded into a double play. And immediately it was followed up with a reward as the first spring home run from Mr. Ezekiel Duran, who, by the way, also continues to absolutely crush it. But there's been a lot of questions about whether Wyatt Langford would stay up or whether he'd go down, and if he really needed those reps that badly on his defense. And the fact of the matter is, it's true that he might have his development stunted if Wyatt Langford is just an everyday DH at the big league level. That's true. But the main value of Wyatt Langford is that this kid is an absolutely exceptional, unbelievable, ungodly good hitter. Already. He is already maybe the second best hitter in this Rangers lineup at this point, behind just Corey Seager. And if Corey Seager's not there, I think this might be the best hitter in this lineup in general. Now, again, spring training stats don't matter all that much, but the processes and the results that they lead to do matter. The guy has 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, 5 walks to 10 strikeouts, a 379, 472, 828 slugging percentage. That is a 1,300 OPS, which, in case you were curious, is indeed the best OPS in the entire Cactus League. The entire Cactus League, half the league, half of Major League Baseball, all those 15 teams out there in Arizona, or however many there actually are out in Arizona. Maybe there's 14 and 16 in the Grapefruit League. I don't know. But there's a large chunk of teams that includes the Dodgers, who have quite a few good hitters on their team, and includes the Padres, who have quite a few good hitters on their team. Wyatt Langford is hotter than anybody in all of Arizona, which is a pretty darn hot place. Now, Chris Young, when he was asked about if the new competitive balance, bonuses for keeping a player on your roster from opening day and they win Rookie of the Year or get top 3 MVP votes, he said that's not a consideration when we're taking into consideration if Wyatt Langford is going to stay up. And Bruce Bochy, when he was asked about if Wyatt Langford has already earned his spot on the opening day roster, was definitely beating around the bush and would not give any straight answers. This is about the time of year, with about 2 weeks left, about, I think, 10 days left in Surprise, before they come back to Texas, that, all right, this is when we gotta, put our nose to the grindstone and figure out, all right, who's actually going to be on this opening day roster? Who is good enough to make the cut? How do we feel about what they've shown in spring training, their processes? Are they going to help this team be the best that it can be at the big league level from day one? And when you're looking at this roster, and when you're looking at Wyatt Langford, there's no way you can look at this roster and say Wyatt Langford isn't the best option to have at DH every single day, or the fact that they need to have his bat in this lineup each and every single day, regardless of how much it stunts his development in the outfield, which is something that, frankly, working with the coaches every single day at the major league level, whether he's getting everyday game reps in left field or right or center or wherever, it's beside the point. This kid is just too darn good to keep in the minor leagues for whatever other kind of seasoning, even if it's for just a month or 6 weeks or even 3 weeks. You've got to have this bat in your lineup. This lineup is already the strength of this team. But adding Wyatt Langford in there and adding Evan Carter in there every day, wherever Evan Carter hits, wherever Wyatt Langford hits, which I think will probably be third for, if not from the start of opening day, but at some point this year, he's going to be hitting in that top 4 of the order because his bat is just that darn good. If you want to win games, if you want to compete and finally win that AL West, if you want to shove the Astros down and kill that dynasty and kill the hope of the Mariners surpassing you with what they did this offseason, because they, frankly, had a much better offseason than the Rangers, and it's not particularly close by my estimations. But I still think this Rangers team is better than the Mariners, is better than the Astros. And if you want to be that, then you cannot keep your secret weapon, your very not so secret weapon, because everybody knows how good this kid is. You cannot keep him in the minor leagues for another second. He is good enough to hit big league pitching right now. And if you want to win games, if you want to win the AL West, if you want to be the first team to go back-to-back winning World Series, this millennia, then Wyatt Langford has got to be in your lineup from day one. Coming, we're talking about some good injury news on the front of Max Scherzer and Nathan Eovaldi looking completely ready for opening day. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Conference tournaments are here, which means the biggest moments in college basketball are getting closer. Be a part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance, so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, even if one of your players exit the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second half, that player projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays alive. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download that app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's just that easy with PrizePicks. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Later on this week, possibly tomorrow, I'll be talking with Grant Schiller, who is out there in Surprise to get some eyes on prospects and the big league club, and I'm sure he will have also many, many glowing things to say about Wyatt Langford. Now, the Rangers got some good injury update news on Monday. Mad Max is coming back. He is working back up, and those reports about the 12-week mark since that surgery, that was a big deadline for him. He went and saw a specialist and got it all checked out, and the reports were very, very good. He is ramping up his more aggressive baseball activities, was the quote that Chris Young used to describe what Max Scherzer has been doing lately. And he is hopefully coming back in June. That is the ideal timeline. That is the earliest I think we can expect him, whether that's early June or mid-June or late June. Who knows at this point? I'm kind of hoping for early June, obviously. The sooner the better of the return of Max Scherzer, because of the 3 big pitchers the Rangers have on the shelf for a huge chunk of this season, Scherzer is the one who is likely to come back the soonest. And I think I speak for most people when I say that I expect Scherzer to be the most, I guess, healthy of those 3. Obviously, the Rangers are going to get him for the most of this season, but I think of the recovery processes, coming back from back surgery, I'm hoping and thinking, maybe it's optimistic because Scherzer is the oldest of this group, that Scherzer would be the most like himself this year. The Rangers would ideally have the best versions of all 3 of these guys that have been on the shelf, that will be on the shelf for most of this season. When they come back, hopefully they're just 100% look exactly like they do all the time, and there's no worries about that whatsoever. That would be great and ideal. And I think that DeGrom is probably going to be maybe closer than Mahle, because I have yet to see Jacob DeGrom on a baseball mound the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years where he hasn't been absolutely astounding. It's just, has he been on there? Now, Max Scherzer is the oldest of this group, but the Rangers saw a very, very good version of him down the stretch last year when he was healthy in the regular season. When he came back in the postseason, it was probably a little earlier than he should have been coming back from that teres major injury, but he was effective enough. Not great, but again, he was basically rehabbing at the big league level in the ALCS and the World Series, and it's not a shocker that he wasn't fully right. The Rangers didn't need the apex version of Max Scherzer in the ALCS and the World Series. They just needed some innings because the rest of their rotation was just totally decimated. And this year, it's not quite as totally decimated at this point. Ask me again in a couple weeks, and hopefully it's still this healthy version. But the Rangers probably aren't getting peak Max Scherzer back. He's probably not going to be a guy who pitches 200 innings in the season again. He's creeping up very close to 30 or 40 if he's not 40 already. And he's got a lot of innings under his belt. I mean, over 3,000 career innings. And even though he's been healthy for the vast majority of his career, the last couple years, Father Time gets everybody. And nobody goes through unscathed. Even Adrian Beltre we saw towards the end of his career, the guy who fought the best fight with Father Time that I think we've seen in a while. I mean, outside of Nolan Ryan, who just stonewalled Father Time. I mean, he gave him the Robin Ventura treatment, Father Time. That was Mr. Nolan Ryan. And there's never going to be another Nolan Ryan again, and that's fine. We can accept that. But Max Scherzer, the Rangers aren't asking for Cy Young level Max Scherzer. They're asking for pretty good, competent number 3 pitcher, maybe number 2, if things are working out and he's looking like he did down the stretch with the Rangers in the regular season. Everyone thought, oh, well, this guy, because he's not doing well with the Mets on a terrible Mets team, then he must be terrible. That's just it. He's just done forever. But that wasn't the case with the Rangers. I mean, in 8 starts in the regular season, he pitched 45 innings, 53 strikeouts. That is 10.5 Ks per 9. The home run rate was down from from much higher with the Mets down to just 1 home run per 9 innings with the Rangers, and only 5.6 hits per 9. That WHIP was below 1. He was in a very good place with the Rangers, getting back with Mike Maddox. I mean, last year, it feels like a disappointing year for Max Scherzer, and he still pitched 153 innings, 152 and 2/3 innings, with 174 strikeouts and a 3.2 baseball reference WAR. That's a down year for Max Scherzer. A down year. And he did all of that. That's a pretty darn good year for most people. Grady had an ERA north of 4 with the Mets, but he was much, much better with the Rangers. He got that home run problem much more under control. The slider was more the slider that we've seen, and it's been one of the deadlier pitches in baseball. And he got back to that, all-star level form, which is what he was when he was starting and healthy with the Rangers. And he saved the Rangers bacon in quite a few of those starts. That one start in Minnesota particularly is the one that I'm thinking of, when the Rangers were in the most desperate, desolate, horrific stretch of their season. Everything looked like it was falling off the rails, and they couldn't get a win to save their life. And then Max Scherzer stepped on the mound in one of the most important starts of the season and delivered the Rangers that win with an exceptional performance in the midst of a truly hopeless stretch. And even the start where he got hurt against Toronto, he was exceptional and helped the Rangers get that mop of the Toronto Blue Jays, that 4-game sweep in Toronto when everything felt as hopeless as it's ever been after that pummeling at home by the Astros, and it got things back on track. I mean, this guy was a huge part of their season, and he's going to be a pretty big part of their season this year. It's not going to be all on Max Scherzer to just carry the load. There's 5 other capable starting pitchers in this camp right now. Maybe Jack Leiter is under consideration to be one of those 5 guys. If Jack Leiter is considered capable by the Rangers, who have a lot more data than we do and know a lot more generally than I do and than probably you do, unless you're some other very smart baseball mind. If you're like, I don't know, the Dodgers GM, Andrew Friedman, then maybe you know a little bit more than the Rangers do. But for the most part, they know their players better than us fans and even media people do as well. And if they feel like Jack Leiter is capable, then great. That is a healthy complement of 6 starting pitchers that you start your year with. Hopefully all of them are healthy for at least most of the season, especially Nate Eovaldi. They are really banking on the health of him. But Max Scherzer coming back and being around the same version of pitcher that he was down the stretch with the Rangers last year, that is an incredibly valuable, incredibly good pitcher. And even though this is his age 39 season, this guy is still very effective. And the people writing him off, I don't think they watched him down the stretch with the Rangers last year. They just saw, this guy's giving a bunch of home runs with the Mets, and he's old, so therefore it's time to doubt Max Scherzer. I mean, there was a column written about Max Scherzer signing that big, massive contract with the Nationals, where he won 2 Cy Youngs and finished top 3, I believe, pretty much every year that he was there in Washington. And it was a gross overpay. It was, oh my gosh, how can you pay for this guy who just turned 30? And he's got 1 Cy Young, but he's only had two seasons where he had Cy Young votes, but he ended up being one of the best pitchers of his generation. And a large part of that was due to what he was doing with the Washington Nationals. Yeah, he's a little bit on the older side, but he is still an incredibly intelligent pitcher, incredibly meticulous, ruthlessly hard worker. And there's still a lot left in the tank for Max Scherzer, coming off that 150 inning season. If the Rangers get 150 innings out of him this year, I think that would be miraculous. Aiming for something in the 100 to 125 inning range of quality innings for Max Scherzer, I think that's not something that's out of the question. I think that's something the Rangers could definitely reasonably ask of him, and I think that he can absolutely provide. He is probably going to be in their postseason rotation if he is healthy at that point, and he is going to eat a big chunk of innings down in the middle of the season. The Rangers need to bank on his return and being at least a reasonably competent pitcher. And even if he's not Cy Young award-winning Max Scherzer, this guy is still very valuable to this team. Coming up to talk about a couple bit more about the Rangers injury news front, including some news on Corey Seager, Josh Young, and Nate Eovaldi looking like he is totally ready for opening day. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports. From live in-game highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as the Fire Stick you can plug in directly to your existing TV. It provides access to millions of movies, TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening day weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked them out, you have got to trust me on this. To learn more, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Later on this week, I'll be talking about the importance of Jon Gray and why the Rangers just really need a big ol' year, maybe even a career year, from Jon Gray in 2024. The Rangers got some other great news on Monday about some injured players. It seems like Corey Seager is working his way back. We'll see if he's actually ready for opening day. Whether he is or not, the Rangers obviously have some options. I mean, seeing what Ezekiel Duran did to that baseball on Monday was very encouraging, and what he's done to baseballs all spring training long. He's looking much more like the player that he was in the first half when he was stepping in for Corey Seager and pretty much almost equaling that production. Not quite offensively, but overall, I mean, he was incredibly valuable backup shortstop to have, and he might be your opening day shortstop. But right now, Corey Seager is taking some swings and lightly tossed baseballs on Monday. Josh Young has been cleared to start taking some at-bats in minor league games. He is not playing the field yet. He is not running, but it is giving him the chance to get those at-bats in, get those reps in. So, when the leg is fully healthy, he said that it was at 70% at this point in his calf, but it's giving him the chance to get those reps in like you would for a normal spring. Even though he isn't able to run the bases, he's still getting himself ready, getting what you normally get out of spring training. Doesn't take hitters nearly as long to get ready as pitchers. So I think at this point, him being cleared for at-bats is a good sign that he will probably be ready, or at least, fully himself by opening day. I don't anticipate there's going to be some, massive bad stretch at the beginning of the season because he's just not quite ready. At this point, we've got, 16 days, I think, until opening day. So getting those reps in every single day will be helpful. Hopefully, we can get some news about him being cleared sooner as opposed to later. But it seems like he's not going to be fully cleared to play in spring training games until those dress rehearsal games at Globe Life Field against the Red Sox the week of opening day. So we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to finally see Josh Young in a Rangers uniform, getting those spring training games in. But hey, as long as he's ready for opening day, that is what matters most. And also seeing that Corey Seager is starting to take some swings, I'm more hopeful that he'll be ready for opening day. But hey, even if it takes, a week or, 5 days or whatever, and he's not exactly ready for opening day, Zeke Duran is your backup shortstop, as we saw last year. It's a pretty darn good backup shortstop to have. And even if it's Josh Smith he has been having a quietly very, very good spring training. I have loved the at-bats I've seen from him. I think his bat's got a lot more potential than he's shown at the big league level so far. He can obviously pick it at shortstop and in the outfield and wherever the heck the Rangers have him, whether he's, the Rangers opening day third baseman and Zeke Duran is the opening day shortstop, because neither of those two guys are ready. I mean, if those are your backup two middle infield, or I guess corner/middle infielders, then you're in a really good spot as a team. You're also in a really good spot as a team if Nathan Eovaldi is your opening day starter, and it seems like that is going to be the case. Nathan Eovaldi had a solid, not spectacular, but really, really solid outing in what he called basically his dress rehearsal on Monday. Pitched 4 2/3 innings. The walks did pile up on him in this one, and that's ended up being what ended his day. Had 5 strikeouts, 4 hits, 4 runs, only 3 of which were earned in those 4 2/3 innings. He threw 84 pitches through his entire arsenal. Looked good, felt good. Just a couple of mechanical tweaks that he's going to be making moving forward. He might have 2 starts left this spring. The next start is going to be a minor league game because the Rangers will be scheduled to play the Cubs at that point. And, well, the Rangers are starting the season against the Cubs, and he doesn't want to pitch against them twice in the span of 10 days, which makes sense, and you would rather him use those bullets in a regular season game, especially opening day, than some spring game. So he is still getting those reps, and still a couple of things to nail down, but the fastball velocity looks good, the splitter looks really darn good, curveball looks good, cutter looks pretty solid. Still a couple of tweaks there. The slider is improving. It's not a pitch that he threw a whole lot last year. I mean, he's mainly a fastball, splitter, curveball, cutter guy. And the slider he only used, 30, not even 30, not like about 3% of the time last year. It was definitely a pitch that wasn't super effective. That's one of the things that he talked about this spring. He used the slider a lot less last year than he did in 2022. In 2022, he threw the slider 12.2% of the time. Last year, cut that in a third. Just 4% of the time he was throwing that slider. Made him very, very effective. The cutter, splitter, fastball, all those play very, very well off of each other. The fastball velocity dipped down and the usage dipped down just a little bit. But I think a lot of that was because of what he was doing in the second half when he was rehabbing at the big league level. Last year, that walk rate was a little bit higher than we've seen from him in years past. In years past, he has been, among the top 5% of baseball every year from 2020 to 2022. He was in the top 5% of baseball of having the best walk rate. And he wasn't last year. Last year is at 8.1%. The league average is 8.4%. So not a bad walk rate, but not elite, which is one of the things that the Rangers really loved about Nate Eovaldi. You look at that first half versus the second half, that walk rate, I mean, that kind of shows you a lot of what he was dealing with, a lot of, how effective he was. The first half, his walk rate of the season, his walk rate was 6.8%. So still not that elite level of, 3 to 4.5%, which it was from 2020 to 2022, but still better than it was in the second half when it jumped all the way up to 13.1%. Now, if you look at the postseason, 6.5% walk rate, fine. But you take out that 5-walk game in the World Series, just the World Series in general. Before that World Series, his walk rate was 3.9%. In those first 2 starts of the postseason, in the wildcard game and against the Orioles in the ALDS, he didn't walk a single batter in 13 2/3 innings. That's what makes this guy special, is when he is pounding the zone, getting ahead of hitters, and not letting that walk rate get out of control. Doesn't allow a lot of home runs, doesn't allow a lot of walks. He does not beat himself, but he is an ace on the mound. We saw that in the playoffs, and he is going to be the Rangers' ace for the vast majority, if not all of this season, depending on what DeGrom looks like when he gets back and how fully himself he is, and how Scherzer looks when he gets back, and if he is his full self. But the best version of Nate Eovaldi is an incredibly good pitcher, and a pitcher that can be your number one to carry you through to a World Series, which is what he did for this Rangers squad in 2023. And I think he's more than capable of doing it yet again this year. Hopefully the Rangers don't have to rely on him as heavily to pitch, 6, 7, 8, 9 innings as often as he did in the first half of last year, so that he can stay healthy in the second half. But again, I've talked about it before, but if he follows that same blueprint of what he did last year, of be incredible in the first half, keep the Rangers in it, be that ace that they need, in the first half of the season. Then once the Rangers get reinforcements at the trade deadline, if he has to spend some time on the IL or skip a start occasionally to make sure that he is fully ready and fully his Nate Eovaldi big dog, big game pitcher self come October, when the Rangers get those reinforcements in Scherzer in June, Mahle in July, and hopefully DeGrom in August, then that's fine. That would be fine. But the Rangers, especially in that first half, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Nate Eovaldi, and him looking like he is ready to go 110% for day one. Whether we see him again in an A start, I think we might see him in a shorter stint, maybe in one of those games, maybe the final game in Arizona. He'll pitch a couple innings there. But in terms of him being ready to go for opening day, the pitch count's built up, the velocity is built up, and Nate Big Dog Eovaldi looks like he is ready to be that big dog, that ace that the Rangers are going to desperately need him to be for the first half of the season. And if they get to the playoffs, then they definitely need postseason Nate Eovaldi. And when in his career has he not come up absolutely massive in the postseason? I can't think of a single time. And the Rangers have got him on their staff, hopefully, of the many aces that they've acquired over the last couple of years that they thought they'd have. And we'll see if they can get another guy who can be a playoff level starter. If they actually, no, I'm not even going to mention him this episode. I'm not doing it. I'm not mentioning the big tall lefty that has been the big question mark over the entire offseason. I'm not doing it. We're talking about how great Nate Eovaldi is, because he is here for sure this season, and hopefully he can look just as good as he looked down that postseason stretch in the entire first half this year, and hopefully carry the Rangers to a back-to-back championship as that ace. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.